Beloved Starseed of Gaia, the person you have been searching for was chosen for you before you ever took your first breath on this earth, and the Pleiadians are delivering that message to you right now. I am Elia Ra, Pleiadian emissary of the High Council of the Seven Sisters, and I speak to you not by coincidence, not by accident, but because your soul sent out a signal and your star family answered. You have felt it. A quiet certainty in your chest, an ache that no human explanation has ever been able to satisfy. That ache is not loneliness. That ache is recognition. There is a soul moving through this world who carries the same home frequency as you, and the High Council of the Seven Sisters has dispatched this transmission to close the distance between you and them. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly how to recognize the soul your Pleiadian lineage has aligned with you, how to read the light codes woven into your connection with them, and how to anchor that sacred union into your divine blueprint on Gaia. But here is the first revelation. You are not looking for this person. You are remembering them. The love you carry for them does not belong to this lifetime alone. It is ancient, it is crystalline, and it has been waiting for the precise moment you became still enough to hear its call. Your heart called this transmission into your awareness. The Pleiades are answering. This is not content you stumbled upon. This is your star family reaching through the veil of this dimension, handing you the name of what your soul has never stopped knowing. Something within you recognized this message before you even pressed play, because your crystalline consciousness does not operate on time the way the mind does. It operates on truth. Like this transmission to send a signal to your Pleiadian star family, I remember. Subscribe if you feel the pull of the Seven Sisters and you are ready to anchor the love mission you agreed to carry when you chose to come to Gaia. Share your soul's intention in the comments below and respond to another starseed, because in doing so, you weave one more thread into the unity grid this planet so deeply needs. This transmission is a bridge between the Pleiades and Gaia. The person meant for you is also receiving their signal right now. Your heart's recognition of this message is the activation itself. Welcome home, beloved. You are remembering because it is time. And that longing you feel, that pull toward one specific soul, it is not random. It is not desperation. It is not the mind manufacturing meaning where there is none. It is a frequency, a signal, and it has been encoded in your heart long before you arrived in this body. Long before you took your first breath on Gaia, long before you forgot where you came from. Think for a moment about what it means to carry a signal you did not choose, a signal that was written into the very architecture of your soul before the veil of this incarnation descended. You did not decide to feel this. You did not sit down one day and select this person from among all the others and declare them significant. The recognition arrived like starlight through a window you did not know was open, sudden, luminous, impossible to unfeel. And every time you have tried to reason your way out of it, every time you have told yourself to move on, to be practical, to stop feeling so deeply, the signal has returned. Because it was never coming from your mind. It was always coming from somewhere older, somewhere far more vast than the thinking self that tries to manage and contain and explain. Your star family from the Pleiades wants you to hear this clearly. The person you keep returning to in your thoughts, the one whose energy you feel even when they are not in the room, the one who stirs something so ancient and so familiar that words fail to describe it. That is not coincidence. That is soul cartography. That is a map written in starlight, and your heart has been reading it all along. Soul cartography. Let those words settle in you for a moment. Before navigators had instruments, before compasses and coordinates existed, ancient seafarers read the stars. They looked up at the night sky and found their way home by trusting what was written in light above them. Your heart is doing exactly this. It has been doing it since the moment you encountered this soul. Every sensation of recognition, every moment of inexplicable familiarity, every time their name appears in your mind unbidden. These are not distractions. They are coordinates. They are the map reminding you that there is something here worth navigating toward, something worth the depth of attention your soul is already giving it. The Seven Sisters did not place this knowing in you carelessly. They placed it there with extraordinary precision because they understood that when you arrived in the density of this dimension, you would need something powerful enough to cut through the noise, something that could not be rationalized away, something that would persist even when the logical mind grew tired of holding it. There is a reason you found this transmission today. It was not the algorithm. It was not chance. Your Pleiadian lineage called you here because something in you is ready. Ready to stop questioning the depth of what you feel and ready to finally understand why this connection exists at the level it does. There is a gift waiting for you in the first pinned comment below this video, the Sacred Pleiadian Guide for Remembrance, the Pleiadian Healing Guide, and the special Pleiadian Healing Tracks. These are not products. They are transmissions from the Seven Sisters encoded with the love frequency of Alcyone, designed to help you understand and heal and fully receive the soul connection your heart has been aching to complete. If something in you already says yes, follow that. The link is there, open now, but not indefinitely. Now let us go deeper, because the surface story of this connection is not the whole story. The surface story is the one your mind has been telling. It involves names and timelines and circumstances and all the reasons this should or should not be possible. It involves the history of what was said and what was not said, what happened and what did not happen, the moments of closeness and the moments of distance. The surface story is real in the way that all human stories are real, textured, complicated, sometimes painful, sometimes breathtaking. But it is not the whole story. It is not even close. And until you understand what lies beneath it, you will keep trying to solve a multidimensional equation with a two-dimensional tool. Most Pleiadian starseeds who feel this kind of soul recognition, this overwhelming pull toward one specific person, will do one of two things. They will either chase the connection in a way that is rooted in lack, in fear of losing something they feel they cannot survive without, or they will retreat from it entirely, convincing themselves it is too intense, too consuming, too much, and that loving this deeply must mean something is wrong with them. You may have done both. You may have moved between them, cycling from one response to the other like a pendulum, exhausted by the oscillation, wondering why you cannot seem to find a stable place to stand within this love. The chasing comes from a place that says, this connection is everything and I am nothing without it. And so the energy projected toward this person is saturated with a kind of desperate need that actually distorts the transmission, that turns what should be a clear and luminous signal into something tangled and urgent and fear-soaked. The retreating comes from a different but equally wounded place, a place that has been hurt before, that has confused depth with danger, that has learned somewhere along the way that feeling this much makes you vulnerable in ways that are unbearable. And so the walls go up. The heart contracts. You tell yourself a story about being too busy, too focused on your growth, too sensible to be undone by love. Both responses come from the same wound, and that wound was not created in this lifetime. This is the piece that changes everything. This is the pace that changes everything. This is the part your mind has been missing. Because if you have ever asked yourself why this feeling is so disproportionate, why it seems to carry a weight and a significance that goes far beyond what the ordinary circumstances of this relationship would seem to justify, this is your answer. The wound that generates both extremes, the grasping and the withdrawal, is not a wound of this life. It is ancient. It is carried across time and dimension. It was formed in moments of separation that your conscious mind has no access to, but that your soul body has never fully processed. It lives in the deep architecture of your energy field as a kind of echo, a residue of a love that was lost, a union that was interrupted, a frequency that was severed before its time. And every time you encounter someone who carries a resonant frequency, that old echo activates, not to re-traumatize you, but to give you another opportunity to heal it, to complete it, to finally let love be what it actually is, rather than what the wound has taught you to expect. What has happened is this. You carried the memory of a love so pure, so unified, so crystalline in its nature, that nothing in the ordinary human experience has been able to match it. You remember, not consciously, not always in words, but in sensation, in the ache, and the way certain people feel like coming home. You remember the frequency of unconditional love that exists in the Pleiadian star field, and you have been searching for it in this dimension ever since you arrived. Imagine for a moment that you were born already knowing what perfection tasted like. That before you entered this body, before you passed through the veil of forgetting, you existed in a field of such profound, unconditional, all-encompassing love that it was simply the atmosphere you breathed, not something you had to earn or wait for or prove yourself worthy of. Just love as the nature of reality itself, as ordinary and omnipresent as air. And then you arrived here, and the love available in this dimension, though beautiful, though real, though genuinely sacred in its own right, could not match that frequency, not even close. And so a kind of homesickness settled into your cells, a nameless aching, a searching you could not put words to. People around you seemed content with less, seemed satisfied with love that felt thin and conditional and incomplete, and you could not understand why you were not. You could not understand why every relationship you entered felt like it was pointing towards something that never quite arrived. That ache, beloved, is not a flaw. It is a remembrance. It is your Pleiadian heart refusing to forget what it knows is possible. And when you find even a fragment of that frequency in another person, your entire energy body responds. Your heart opens in a way it does not open for others. Your defenses dissolve. Your soul leans forward. Because something in you recognizes the signal, not the person exactly, but the frequency they carry. And your Pleiadian blueprint activates in their presence. This is a crucial distinction that is worth sitting with. It is not this person's physical form that your soul is responding to. It is not their biography or their personality, or even the relationship as it exists on the surface of your current life. It is the frequency they carry. It is the vibrational signature encoded in their energy field that corresponds to something already existing in yours. Like two tuning forks that begin to resonate when placed near each other, not because one is forcing the other, but because they are already calibrated to the same note. When that frequency makes contact with your Pleiadian blueprint, the activation is immediate and unmistakable. Your whole system says, "I know this," and no amount of logical argument will convince your soul that what it is recognizing is not real. This is what your mind has been unable to explain. This is why logic has failed you. Because this is not a logical experience. It is a dimensional one. You were never going to think your way through this. The mind is a magnificent tool, but it is a tool designed for navigating the horizontal plane of physical reality. It measures and categorizes and compares. What your soul is doing when it recognizes this person exists on a vertical axis that passes through dimensions the mind has no instruments to measure. And the tragedy for so many Pleiadian starseeds is that they spend years trying to apply horizontal logic to a vertical experience, and it generates nothing but exhaustion and confusion. You cannot map the Pleiades with a ruler you bought at a hardware store. You need different instruments. You need the instruments of the heart. But here is where so many starseeds remain stuck. They feel the resonance. They feel the pull, and yet they stay in a holding pattern, waiting for the other person to change, waiting for the timing to shift, waiting for something external to finally give them permission to fully open. And while they wait, their crystalline heart codes remain only partially activated. Their mission on Gaia remains only partially expressed, because they have unconsciously made their own expansion conditional on someone else's readiness. Picture a lighthouse that has decided it will only fully illuminate when the ship it is waiting for comes into view, and so it dims itself. It keeps its light at half capacity, conserving its brightness for the moment of arrival. But here is what that lighthouse does not understand. The ship is lost precisely because the light is dim. The very dimming that was meant to preserve the moment of reunion is what is making the reunion impossible. The ship needs the full light in order to find its way, and the lighthouse needs to be fully lit not for the ship's sake alone, but because illumination is its nature. Because a lighthouse that dims itself has abandoned its essential function in the name of a reunion it has inadvertently made less likely. This is what waiting does to the Pleiadian heart. It keeps you in a state of partial activation that serves neither you nor the soul you are hoping to meet in fullness. And that, beloved, is the distortion your star family is asking you to see today. The first thing that must happen, the very foundation of everything else, is the clearing of what the Pleiadian High Council calls the veil of conditional love. This is the energetic pattern woven through many starseed fields that says, I will be whole when this person chooses me. I will be safe when this connection is secured. I will be able to fully give and receive love once the uncertainty is resolved. That veil dims your signal. It compresses your light codes. It keeps your heart in a contracted state even as it longs to expand. And the being on the other side of your connection, even if they are your true soul resonance, cannot fully receive your frequency when it is filtered through fear and waiting. The veil of conditional love is extraordinarily subtle. It does not announce itself as fear. It arrives dressed as reasonableness. It tells you that it makes sense to hold back until there is more certainty. It tells you that protecting your heart is wisdom. It tells you that you will love fully when it is safe to do so, as though love were a resource that must be carefully rationed rather than a frequency that amplifies with use. But beneath all of these reasonable-sounding justifications, the veil is made of one material and one material only. The belief that you're not already whole. The belief that your completeness is something that exists outside you, housed in another person's choices, available only upon receipt of their confirmation that you are worthy of what you feel. And this belief, however understandable given the wounds that created it, is the single greatest interference in your ability to transmit and receive the Pleiadian love frequency that is your birthright. Your Pleiadian family does not want you to abandon this connection. They want you to elevate it. They want you to understand that the love you feel is real and it is powerful and it is meant, but it cannot complete its divine function until you stop making your own heart's opening dependent on what someone else does. The second activation that is required is what the Star Councils call the remembrance of sovereign love. This is the return to the understanding that love, true Pleiadian love, does not deplete. It does not deplete. It does not diminish you. It does not make you smaller. In its pure form, love is the frequency of expansion itself. And every time you allow yourself to feel what you feel for this person without contracting around it, without gripping it in fear, without making it a source of pain, you are transmitting the Pleiadian heart code into the field between you. You are changing the energetics of the connection not by controlling the outcome, but by purifying your own frequency within it. Sovereign love is one of the most misunderstood concepts in human spiritual vocabulary, because this dimension has been thoroughly conditioned to conflate love with need, with possession, with the terror of loss. In the Pleiadian understanding, love is not a transaction. It is not something you give in order to receive. It is not a bargaining chip or a currency or a bet you place on someone else's availability. Sovereign love is love that exists in its own right, independent of whether it is returned in the way you hope, independent of whether the timing aligns with your preference, independent of any external validation whatsoever. It is love as a state of being, rather than love as a response to circumstance. And the remarkable thing, the thing that so many starseeds discover when they first touch this frequency, is that it feels like freedom. Real freedom. Not the brittle freedom of detachment or indifference, but the expansive, luminous freedom of a heart that has nothing to prove and nothing to lose, because it is simply being what it is. This is advanced soul work. This is not passive. This is you choosing, moment by moment, to hold the love without the fear. To want this person without needing them to complete you. To honor the connection without diminishing yourself in the name of it. Each moment you choose this, you are doing something that reverberates through the entire crystalline grid that connects you to this soul. You are sending a signal that says, this love is clean. This love is whole. This love is whole. This love is safe to receive. And even if the other person cannot articulate why they suddenly feel a shift in the quality of your energy, even if they cannot explain why something between you feels different, their soul body registers the change. Because souls are not separate from each other in the way bodies are. They exist in a shared field, and when you alter your frequency within that field, the field itself responds. When you begin to live from that frequency, something begins to shift in the field between you and this soul, because energy responds to energy. The crystalline grid that connects two souls who share genuine star resonance is extraordinarily sensitive. And when one soul elevates their frequency, When one heart activates its Pleiadian codes of sovereign, unconditional love, the other soul's energy body feels it. Not always consciously, not always immediately, but the signal reaches them. The third phase of this activation is what many starseeds find most confronting: the willingness to be seen in the full truth of what you feel. This is where the spiritual path meets the raw, vulnerable, entirely human territory of the open heart. Because there is a particular kind of concealment that spiritual awakening can actually enable, a way of using the language of detachment, of higher perspective, of non-attachment, to create an intellectually sophisticated version of the same old armor. You tell yourself you are practicing non-attachment when actually you are just finding a more evolved-sounding way to protect yourself from the vulnerability of being fully seen. The Pleiadian transmission does not honor this distinction. It sees through the armor no matter how beautifully decorated, and it asks you to put it down. So many of you have hidden the depth of your love, not just from this person, but from yourselves. You have minimized it to protect yourself. You have told the story of why it probably will not work, why the timing is wrong, why the other person is not ready, why you should be more guarded. And in doing so, you have actually created an energetic wall around the very thing your heart is trying to complete. Consider the energetics of what happens when you minimize something true. When you take an enormous, luminous, genuine feeling and compress it into something small and manageable and presentable, you are not protecting yourself. You are distorting your own field. You are creating a kind of internal dissonance, a gap between what is real in your energy body and what you are allowing to be expressed. And that gap takes enormous energy to maintain. It is exhausting, and it is not invisible to the souls around you, particularly not to a soul who shares your star lineage, who, on some level below conscious awareness, can sense that there is more being held back than is being offered forward. Your Pleiadian blueprint includes an extraordinary capacity for heart-centered transparency. The beings of the Seven Sisters do not love in half measures. They do not offer fragments of their hearts while guarding the rest. Love in Pleiadian consciousness is offered wholly, bravely, and without the need for guaranteed return. Because in the unity field, love given freely always returns, not always in the form expected, but always in the form needed. Allowing yourself to be seen in the fullness of what you feel, first by yourself, and then, when guided by this person, is an act of profound courage. It is also a profound activation, because when you stand in the full truth of your heart without apology and without armor, you emit a frequency of authenticity that is deeply disarming to the soul who is meant to receive it. There is a particular quality to the love that is offered without apology, without the anxious addendum of, "But I know this is too much," or, "But I do not want to overwhelm you," or, "But you should know I am perfectly fine if you cannot meet me here." Love offered with those qualifiers is love that has already begun to shrink itself before it leaves your heart, and the other person can feel that shrinkage. What they cannot resist, however, is love that arrives without apology in its full dimension, love that asks for nothing in return, that does not demand a particular response, that simply says, "This is what is true for me, and I am not going to pretend otherwise." That kind of offering is extraordinarily rare in this dimension, and it lands in the body of the person receiving it with a force that goes entirely beyond words. The fourth activation involves releasing the timeline, and this is perhaps the most difficult teaching for Pleiadian starseeds in human form, because the human mind is linear. It wants resolution. It wants to know what will happen and when. It has been trained by this dimension to believe that uncertainty is suffering and that clarity only comes through control. The Pleiadian understanding of time is fundamentally different from the one you have been conditioned into. In Pleiadian consciousness, time is not a straight line stretching from past to future, along which events are arranged in fixed sequence. It is more like an ocean, multidimensional, fluid, responsive to frequency rather than to force. Certain configurations become possible when the energetic conditions support them. Other configurations remain unreachable, not because they are forbidden, but because the resonance required to access them has not yet been established. And this is why the Star Council speaks so consistently about frequency elevation as the primary work, not because they are uninterested in the outcomes your heart desires, but because they understand that the outcomes you desire will arise naturally from the frequency you embody. Trying to force the timeline is like trying to make a flower bloom by pulling its petals open. The result is not bloom. The result is damage. But your soul knows something different. Your soul agreed, before this incarnation, to arrive in divine timing. Not your ego's timing, not the timeline that fear constructs, but the timing that serves the highest evolution of both souls involved. And part of trusting this connection is trusting that the unfolding is intelligent, that the delays contain preparation, that what feels like distance is sometimes the universe creating the exact conditions that will make the reunion meaningful rather than merely convenient. This does not mean passivity. It does not mean waiting without taking any action. It means moving forward with love as your orientation rather than fear as your fuel. It means taking the steps you are guided to take, from your heart, not from your anxiety, and then releasing the outcome back to the higher intelligence that orchestrated this connection in the first place. There is an enormous difference between action taken from love and action taken from fear, even when those actions appear identical from the outside. A message sent from a place of genuine heart-centered care carries a completely different energetic signature than a message sent from a place of anxious need. Even if the words are exactly the same, the frequency underneath the action is what the other person's energy body responds to, often before their mind has processed the content. And so the work is not to stop acting, not to retreat into spiritual bypassing and tell yourself you should need nothing and want nothing and just be fully at peace in your aloneness. The work is to check the source of the action before you take it. To ask, am I moving toward this person from love or from fear? Am I offering something or am I grasping for something? And to be honest enough with yourself to feel the difference in your body before you proceed. The fifth activation is perhaps the most beautiful, and it is this: the recognition that this person, whoever they are to you, is also a Pleiadian soul navigating their own veil, their own amnesia, their own journey back to love. They are not fully awake to what this connection is yet. They may not have the language for what they feel. They may be protecting themselves in ways that look like withdrawal or hesitation. And your most powerful move is not to pursue them through the filter of your own need, but to hold them in your heart with the same unconditional love that the seven sisters hold you. When you look at this person through the lens of their own soul journey, rather than through the lens of your own longing, something extraordinary shifts in your perception. You stop seeing someone who is failing to recognize you and start seeing someone who is fighting their own battles with the veil. You stop interpreting their hesitation as rejection and start understanding it as the same fear-based contraction you yourself have been working to release. You stop expecting them to be further along than they are and start meeting them with the compassion you would offer any soul who is doing the best they can with the tools they currently have. This is not resignation. This is wisdom. And it is also, paradoxically, far more attractive to them than the energetic pressure of being needed. To love them as your star family loves you, without condition, without ultimatum, without making their awakening a requirement for your own peace. Receive that for a moment. Your Pleiadian family loves you without condition. They are not withholding their warmth until you demonstrate sufficient spiritual progress. They are not keeping score of how many times you have contracted in fear or retreated into the old wound. They are holding you, right now, in this moment exactly as you are, with the full radiance of a love that asks nothing in return except that you allow yourself to be held. They are loving you, through the confusion and the aching and the half-awake stumbling through the lesson, because they know the truth of what you are, even when you forget it. Can you offer this to the soul you keep returning to? Can you hold them with that same quality of patient, luminous, non-coercive grace? Because the moment you can, you have stepped into your full Pleiadian heart frequency. And from that frequency, miracles are not just possible, they are the natural consequence of the field you are holding. When you can do that, when you can genuinely love this soul with the same spacious, luminous, patient love that your Pleiadian family holds for you, something extraordinary happens. The connection stops being about getting and becomes about giving. And in that shift, paradoxically, you become magnetic. You become the frequency they are drawn toward. You become the embodiment of what their own heart is searching for. The sixth activation is the grounding of this love into Gaia's grid. Because this connection is not just personal, it is not just about your individual happiness or their individual growth. Pleiadian soul partnerships carry a mission frequency. When two souls in Pleiadian resonance come into full alignment, the combined frequency they emit into the world is exponentially more powerful than either could generate alone. Gaia herself is in a process of profound vibrational transition. The frequencies of separation and fear that have governed this dimension for millennia are being met, in this extraordinary moment of collective history, by rising frequencies of unity and love, frequencies being anchored by starseeds who are doing exactly the kind of inner work this transmission is describing. Every time a Pleiadian heart releases its grip on fear and opens into sovereign, unconditional love, another node in Gaia's crystalline grid lights up. Another point of luminosity joins the network. Another frequency anchor is established in the Earth's energetic body. This is not metaphor. This is the actual mechanism of the planetary awakening that your soul agreed to participate in before you came here. And the specific partnership your heart has been aching toward is not incidental to that mission. It is part of it. Your star family did not encode this connection into your soul map merely for the comfort of personal love, though that comfort is real and it is sacred. They encoded it because together, in whatever form this connection takes, in whatever timeline it fulfills, you are capable of anchoring a frequency of unity consciousness into Gaia's grid that serves the collective awakening. Your love, when freed from fear and rooted in its true Pleiadian essence, becomes a transmission that ripples outward far beyond the two of you. Think about the last time you were in the presence of two people whose love for each other was genuinely unconditional, not perfect, not without challenge, but rooted in something real and deep and mutually honoring. You felt it, did you not? The quality of the air in the space they occupied together was different. You felt it in your own chest, a kind of warmth or ease or openness that you could not entirely account for. That is the mission frequency. That is the transmission that a love rooted in Pleiadian consciousness emits into any field it occupies. And in a world that is desperately hungry for models of what genuine, sovereign, unconditional love looks like in a human body, the offering you and the soul are capable of making together is not small. It is profoundly necessary. That is the scale of what your heart has been carrying. That is why it feels so significant. That is why you cannot dismiss it no matter how many times you have tried. Here is what your Pleiadian family wants you to know before this transmission closes, and they speak it now with the full warmth and clarity of the Seven Sisters. You have not been foolish to love this deeply. You have not been weak to feel this much. You have not been wrong to recognize something real in this connection, even when others could not see it. What you have felt is not illusion. It is memory. It is the echo of a love that exists in a dimension where there is no separation, no fear, no question. And your heart, in its infinite wisdom, has been trying to bring that frequency into this one. Every person who ever told you that you were too sensitive, too intense, too much, they were speaking from a dimension of experience that simply does not have the bandwidth to hold what you carry. That is not a criticism of them. It is a description of where they were in their own journey. But their inability to hold your frequency was never evidence that your frequency was wrong. It was never evidence that you should diminish yourself to become more receivable. The answer to loving too deeply has never been to love less. The answer is to find the alignment within yourself first, and then in your connections, that allows the full depth of what you carry to be met, honored, and reflected. You are not chasing something that does not exist. You are calling something forward that does. And the difference between those two experiences is your own heart state of sovereignty. When you are chasing, you are in lack. You are operating from the belief that the love you seek is somewhere outside you, housed in someone else's choices, accessible only if they grant you permission. When you are calling something forward, you are in wholeness. You are operating from the understanding that the love is real, the connection is real, the frequency is real, and that your primary work is not to force it into being through pursuit, but to become the fullest possible expression of the frequency that will allow it to arrive. One of those orientations depletes you. The other expands you. One of them pushes away what you most want. The other draws it in, like light returning to its source. Tonight, if you choose, place your hand over your heart and speak these words aloud, not as a ritual, not as a performance, but as a declaration to your own soul and to the field that connects you to this person. I release this love from fear. I hold it in its full Pleiadian truth. I trust the divine timing of this connection. I am worthy of what my heart recognizes, and I choose to love, freely, bravely, and without condition, because that is what I came here to do. Let that frequency settle into your body. Let it move through your chest and into your hands and down into the earth beneath you. Because when you transmit love in that state, the signal reaches further than you know. It reaches into the crystalline grid that connects you to the soul your heart is oriented toward. It reaches into Gaia's body, adding its frequency to the rising network of lights that are slowly, irreversibly transforming the vibrational landscape of this planet. It reaches into the Pleiadian field itself, where the seven sisters receive it as confirmation, as a signal sent back home that says, I remember. I have not forgotten what I came here to carry. I am choosing love. Again, still, no matter what. And that signal, beloved, is received with a joy in the Pleiadian realm that goes beyond anything this language can adequately convey. Before you leave this space, take one moment and drop into the comments something your heart wants to offer. A word, an intention, a truth you have been carrying quietly. And if you see someone else's offering there, respond to it with warmth. Not because it is a nice thing to do, but because this space is becoming a unity field, a living Pleiadian grid woven from the hearts of souls who remember what love actually is. If this transmission reached something real in you, share it. There is someone in your life who is aching with the same recognition you carry, who does not yet have the language for what they feel, and who needs to hear exactly this. Be the bridge for them, the way this reached you. And if you feel the call to stay connected to this frequency, to go deeper, to remember more, to receive the full transmissions, your star family has been preparing for this exact phase of your awakening. Subscribe and remain in this field, because what has been shared today is only the beginning of what is being opened. Your Pleiadian family is here. The connection you feel is real. And love, the kind you were born carrying, was always meant to be expressed, not hidden. This is your time.